In May 2012, the home of Mrs. Latoya Emmons, located in the town of Gary, Indiana, USA, was visited by several police officers, who arrived at the scene to investigate a strange report. Real or wishful thinking? The mysterious silhouette that appears behind the window of the house Latoya Emmons correspond to a demonic entity, according to the same police said they made the decision. It was not a robbery or a case of domestic violence, but a report of possessions and paranormal occurrences. As had declared itself owner of the house, she and her 3 children ages 12, 9 and 7 years were not only harassed by demons, but the same house, which had moved in November last year, was possessed by evil spirits. The property seemed a strange ooze oil, and inside dark figures and entities who walked and attacked the family walked. The children, who were dragged by the chairs, before going into terrible convulsions and chanting satanic verses, claimed they had seen something like a black and horrible monster that lurked. Charles Austin, a veteran and skeptical police 62, who thought he had seen everything in his police life, "I just knew that social services in the city had been informed that the 3 children of Mrs. Emmons had stopped going to school for something related with demons, so it was not surprising that, like the rest of his colleagues, thought it was just a joke or a simple fraud." The soldiers had to go anyway to the house, guided by the mother of Latoya Emmons, Rose Campbell, who had previously told them that police, once they were visited by a specialist psychic paranormal phenomena, the lesser of children, with their eyes, had begun to turn his head and speak in strange tongues. We walked in, and first thing we saw in the room was a lit candle and a Bible on an altar with a crucifix, and saw the same in every room of the house. In the refrigerator there was a drawing of one of the children with Jesus on the cross, but behind him, saw something like demonic figures. We were paralyzed with terror. The Austin official adds that when he and his team with their radios down to the basement, a voice on the radio hissed the word "hey" to then shout, "Get out of here, you out of here." Then communication became confused and then was taken over static. Austin and his colleagues, despite how scared they were, took numerous photographs of the figures and all unexplained events they witnessed, but most of the images disappeared from their cameras and cell phones, because most communication devices started showing unexplained failures after that visit. However, one of the few images that police later took from the outside of the house, you can see the silhouette of an alleged demonic figure crouched behind a window. In addition, one of the police also managed to record one of the strange sounds heard when they went down to the basement. The Austin agent, after leaving the house with his teammates, revealed that when he went up to his car, the driver's seat started moving by itself, back and forth. All we were there that day in the basement, and we saw what we saw and what we go after. We all think the same and all the same call. That piece of land was a portal to hell. While the police experienced that unforgettable day of terror, a Catholic priest, Michael Magina, an expert in practicing exorcisms, was called after a worker social services and a nurse communicate him that they had seen one of the sons of Latoya Emmons climb the wall like a spider and fall standing in front of them. In addition, these officials said they heard loud barking and growling of animals when they entered the house, although there was not a single pet, then see a sinister shadow crept stealthily. One of them finally reported that one of his fingers was frozen after touching a strange oily mud seemed to drip from the roof of the building, not to mention a priest who had to search the house. He felt he stabbed repeatedly in the stomach as he read the Bible in the basement of the same. After talking with witnesses, thoroughly investigate the case and receive authorization from his diocese, Father Magina decided to practice an exorcism. Latoya Emmons, who had moved to an apartment in Illinois, while their children were cared for by a state institution inside the church St. Stephen the Martyr in Merrillville. After tying up some loose ends, the father had come to the conclusion that one of the demons who lived in the house tried to seize Latoya, to transform it into a source of evil. She, in her moments of normalcy, spoke that saw a single demonic entity that seemed to lead the others. When I asked what it was called, this being, she immediately began to experience seizures and other classic symptoms of possession. At one point I put my crucifix on his forehead and his body began to shake violently. At that time I became convinced that the source of evil was she and not her children. Demons jumped through them to their children, then returned to her. After the ceremony ended, seemed back to normal. When he left, I gave a crucifix and a large rosary made with Benedictine medals. She would tell me later that, shortly after leaving the church, the rosary alone broke into 5 parts, like the figure of Christ. But there was something else. When I went to get my bike, I found the totally twisted seat, as if someone would have broken Herculean strength. I knew who had done it. It was a clear warning to me. Latoya Ammons, the female protagonist of this incredible story, which became more accuracy after police records. The day before the second exorcism, the father was physically attacked by demons, but he had already gotten what he wanted. To get Latoya, you will reveal the name or the demons that plagued her. One was a name that appears in the Bible and the other was a stranger to my name. But the important thing is, when I already knew what they were called. These demonic spirits act from the mystery and darkness, and knowing their names was like a ray of light that showed them their limitations. If you know their names, it's easier conjuring and get it going. The second exorcism, unlike the first, was much more violent, explained the same religious. The exorcism is a ritual that is repeated over and over again, to corner and confront the demons and leave his victim alone. So priests must go to confession regularly, so that no unconfessed sins that they can use against you to scare or distract. You might think that you torture the person owned at the ceremony, but it is not. The beleaguered is the devil. The third and final exorcism Magina father underwent Latoya Ammons was in Latin, and was basically praying to God and condemned the devil. In the part where I prayed to God, she did not experience any reaction, but when I started to condemn, the demon was stirred in violent convulsions. This was very interesting, because Latoya Ammons had no notion of Latin. After several hours, exorcism successfully concluded. She fell into a deep sleep and when he woke seemed totally reborn. As he saw it, Father Magina him again shattered deliver the rosary given to her the first time, to take him with him to his new home. The Magina father, by the way, before starting the third exorcism had visited the gloomy house, where they lived Latoya Ammons and 3 children, armed only with incense, salt and holy water. After a long blessing ceremony managed to seal the supposed infernal portal that was in the building, which was corroborated by the following tenants, who to date have not reported the occurrence of any supernatural event inside its walls. The details of this case, who had remained in the strictest secrecy, were released recently thanks to a report in the Daily Mail newspaper, which interviewed several witnesses of the above narrated facts, like Grandma Rose Campbell, the policeman Charles Austin and the same Father Michael Magina.